So the reason I wanted to talk about plein air painting is that I haven't really done it before, and I'm entering a competition with a few other friends up this way, and they're running this plein air painting competition. So it's always fascinated me, and I've always felt I would like to do more of it. So I thought I would research a little bit on some tips and tricks to get started, like what to paint, to have, like what to pack, and how to figure out what you're painting to make it an enjoyable experience. So I thought I would share my findings on here. Hi, Karen and Deb. Just in case there's any others that think it sounds like a fun idea. I know some of you guys probably don't think painting out in front of everyone sounds like much fun, but others might. And I've got some tips to help some of us introverts that don't like people looking at what we're doing as well. Okay, I'm going to get through this. So I suppose preparing for plein air painting involves careful planning and packing to ensure a smooth and enjoyable outdoor painting experience, okay? Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to do it again, are you? So I think key preparations sort of include choosing a suitable location, gathering the right equipment, and of course considering weather conditions. We don't want to be rained out. And then maybe practicing beforehand could be a good idea. And maybe scouting some locations as well could greatly improve your success, rather than just rocking up somewhere and just pulling over on the side of the road, or picking somewhere that you haven't really thought about too hard. It could be really crowded. There could be it could be a midgie infestation area, like you don't know. So putting some planning into it before you even go is probably a good idea. Also, pop in the chat as well if plein air painting is something that you've wanted to try but you haven't, or maybe you could already do it regularly. I'm not sure. But yeah, you could be like me and keep thinking it's something I want to do. And I'm also talking about not just plein air painting as in doing a whole finished piece, also journaling, sketchbooking, all of that sort of stuff as well. Okay, so like I said, I've really only ever done it a few times. Like I've sketched a little bit out and about, but it's, like I said, it's something I really want to try. And I was talking when I was on my art retreat in Tassie, one of my students was showing me her sketchbook, and she is part of the South Australian urban sketchers. So here in Australia, and probably all around the world, we have urban sketching groups, so you can always look them up. I know in Maryborough we have one here that I've always thought I'd love to go along to, and I just never get around to it. But she was showing me her beautiful sketchbook, and that's the bit that I always think I would love, especially as I'm going to start traveling a little bit more with our caravan. I'd love to record what I'm seeing, and I'm really inspired as well. Lynn Diefenbach does a lot of journaling now, and she's sort of recording her travels, and she's doing little poems and that about the place and her thoughts, and she's passing them on to her grandson, I think it is. They're absolutely beautiful, and I just thought, what a wonderful thing to look back on, to see all the different places she's been, but also her thoughts of while she was painting it. I mean, she's an amazing artist, so of course her journals look brilliant. But, you got to start somewhere, I suppose. So I am inspired by people that do this, and Anne, who was showing me her sketchbook, she does pen and ink. So the little black, little marker things like this, and then adds the watercolor over the top at the end. And they're just beautiful, and you can see the time spent. And I think that's a mental block as well that I have. When I was doing my traveling in the caravan at the start of the year, if those that follow me know, I was going to do a sketch a day. And first of all, this was my sketchbook. And I started off in charcoal, and it got so messy. So then I went to graphite. Whoop. And I then stopped at about day 10, and that was about it. And I think a lot of my problem is that I had it in my head. I was doing a sketch a day, and I was giving myself about 15 minutes to half an hour. And after looking at Anne's journal, I realized that I was rushing it. So she was saying a lot of her ones, it's a bit bigger journal than that. They're still not big though, but they 2 to 3 hours on each piece. And I think for me, when I think of spending 2 to 3 hours on a painting, I'm thinking of a painting, something decent. Pastel's quite quick, so we can get some pretty good sized paintings done in a few hours. So I think that is one mind block I need to get past, is don't think of my sketchbook as a quick sketch. Essentially think of it as I'm going to sit down and spend a few hours, and I may not get it done. So doing a sketch a day, that's unrealistic, to spend 2 or 3 hours every day on a sketch. So I need to rethink that when I start traveling again. But so I think knowing that you're going to be sitting out there for a bit longer than 15 minutes is one of the first things, I suppose, to get through my head. And Anne suggested as well to start with something small and simple. So for me, like she said, because I live on a farm here, we have plenty of fence posts and gate latches, rusted bits of chain hanging off things. So like she said, maybe just plant myself next to a fence post with the gate and just look at drawing like the corner of the gate with the latch coming across into the fence post, and just start there with something like that. And then and also with sketching like that, you don't finish it. It sort of goes off into the never. There's no like end line. So she said just find that focal point, something pretty simple that's just around the farm here, and go and sit down and at least give myself a good hour to do that. So that's sort of my goal to get started, is just do stuff around here. I'm just going to check the comments. Debbie, you like the thought, but having others see my work scares you witless. Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I like the idea, like Anne said, start here on my farm. Just get some practice up without other people around. So Alicia, I really enjoy plein air watercolor painting, but haven't tried in any other medium yet. Jill, you love a sketchbook. It's really good to look back on. Yeah, I that's the bit I really like, the idea of, is being able to look back on it in years to come. So all right, so so that's like I was saying, so time is something I need to get through my head, that I'm not going to be just doing a 15-minute sketch. So that's where preparation and planning and all of that comes into it, because of course if you're going to be there for an hour or two, you need to be comfortable. And the other thing, like I said, the reason I've been thinking about this is because I've got this plein air competition coming up. It's in Biggenden, which is a little tiny town 20 minutes from me, further west. And they're putting together, it reminded me of, if you've ever watched the British Landscape Artist of the Year show, good, and there's also the Portrait Artist of the Year. They're great fun to watch for artists. But what they've done, it's a little competition, but they've done, it's a plein air, let me see if I can find, it's Painting from Life in Biggenden on the 30th of August. So essentially, we all rock up there with our canvas. It can be in oil, acrylic, or watercolor. So we all rock up at 9:30 with our canvas or our watercolor paper, and they sign the back of it so that you can't have pre-painted something. So when you finish at the end of the day, it's got to be on the piece that they've signed. And then, yeah, you go out, you've got 5 hours to just wander around the little town, go anywhere, like you can go in the car and drive somewhere. And yeah, come back 5 hours later with a finished painting, and they're what gets judged in this this part of the competition. So it reminded me of Landscape Artist of the Year, if you've ever watched it. And I just thought it was such a wonderful little idea for them to organise. Now, this is their first ever go at having competitions out there. So I'm hoping they get good support. But yeah, if anyone is up my way or lives around this area, you don't have to go in the competition. You might just want to come and spend the day with us out at Biggenden. There's a couple of us going, and it'll just be fun. You can, like I said, you don't have to be in the competition, but hit me up if you want more details about it. It's on the 30th of August. But yeah, so that I thought, well, why not? Let's jump in and have a go at it. So that's what got me thinking I need to figure out how to be best prepared for this. Okay, I don't want to go and like practice doing a painting, because I think I'm confident that I can do it, and I know in my head what I'm looking for to do a painting, like what values to look for and all of that sort of stuff. But making sure I've got the right supplies and that we're comfortable. I'd hate to be there and then go, oh damn, I've forgotten something. So Rose, sounds amazing. I'd love to be part of something like that in the United States. Yeah, there probably is stuff like that. Maybe check out, go to YouTube and look up Landscape Artist of the Year, and have a look. But yeah, maybe, well, you've probably got urban sketches. There would definitely be some sort of urban sketches around the world, and definitely in the US, where they would get together once a month and just go out sketching together. So it's not actually, they're not a competition, but they're just a group, and they would know of any other things that are happening with that sort of stuff. So, oh, Rachel, you're working. That's all right. Yeah, it's it'll be a good day, I reckon. So, okay. So, of course, why try plein air? So there are good reasons for it. It builds really good observation skills and confidence. So, of course, observation is a huge part of doing anything, especially in realism as well. So being able to see, like we said, see those shapes and the values, all of that sort of stuff will make it easier. And I know from experience that I can see those because I do that all the time in my painting. So doing it actually out on site, I don't see it being really much difference. Plein air also helps capture light and mood and atmosphere that a photo obviously can't. So you can work really well together. A lot of artists, of course, go out plein air, do their initial sketching and colour picking and all of that when they're out on site, and then come back and finish their paintings in their studio, or sometimes they'll go out and do their sketches, little mini colour sort of paintings, small ones, that might be for a really large painting that they're going to be doing in their studio. So, of course, you're not going to be painting an enormous painting out on site. I mean, there probably are artists that do, but 9 times out of 10, it's more just to get your sketches down, your composition down, all that sort of stuff, that you can then bring that back to the studio. Okay. You also got to remember, which is another thing, it doesn't have to be perfect when you're out on site. Especially, I know, like, we like the detail and the realism, but I think when you're doing landscape painting and working, not even landscape, I mean, you can still do plein air stuff of animals and flowers and all things like that. It doesn't have to be a full landscape. But just making sure you don't need to get every single tiny detail. I think that's the problem when you're going from doing more realistic stuff, worrying about the details. Then when you get outside to paint, you've got to try and get that out of your head as well, and not try and be absolutely perfect. Sometimes you can capture too many details. So I think for this type of stuff, less is probably better. Okay, and then of course the fear of wrecking a brand new sketchbook is real. I don't know if you guys are the same. I think most are. Like, I bought this really nice little sketchbook, and of course I've done nothing in it. It's nice and empty, and I'm scared to use it. When you just don't want to wreck it. You don't want to make it ugly, like when you've bought a nice sketchbook. So I believe that the fear of that is real. It's like that fear of the blank canvas. So I'm not sure how to get over that, but maybe I was thinking maybe if I did a wash in watercolor, like a bit of a background wash on the page, so it's not this bright white page, and then that might be less scary than to mess it up. All right. So some practical ideas for preparation. So, like I said earlier, scout the location, make sure it's safe, of course. You're not on the side of a busy highway. It's comfortable, and maybe you need to see if there's access to toilets. And like I said, if there's parking, make sure it's off the road a bit. Maybe go and visit it. You could visit that if there's a certain place you've got in mind that you want to paint, go and visit it first to figure out what's the best time of day, maybe to do with the lighting, all the rest. Is there somewhere you can park without being worried about getting hit by a car? Is it quiet? If you don't want other people hanging around, seeing what you're doing, all of that sort of stuff. So you could check it out first, and then otherwise I feel like I think I need to do this for our Biggenden one, because sometimes I think you could spend hours driving around trying to find the perfect place or the perfect thing to paint, whereas if you've already figured that out beforehand, you can just go straight there. Of course, you got to consider the weather and the season. Make sure you got a jumper, all that sort of stuff, a raincoat. Try not to go when it's raining, I suppose. And then make sure like it's also a good spot that you can set up comfortably. And like I said, not many distractions. So I probably wouldn't go to start with. Maybe don't go to your local park that has heaps of people in it walking around, or your busiest beach or anything like that. Maybe try and find some places that aren't quite as busy, because you don't want to get distracted so much. And especially if you don't want people to sort of come and talk to you, maybe. And also, like I said, consider where the sun is, your light, your shadow, all of that sort of stuff as well. Now, things to pack. So if you put in there, if you guys have done any of this, what's sort of the first thing you would pack if you were going out plein air painting? To me, I think I would need to figure out what I'm painting in, you know, whether you're going to do it in pastel, watercolor, oils, acrylics, you know, figure out your plan of attack for what it is. Okay, and also you've got to keep it to a minimum, only the essential materials. So a portable easel, or I was looking at these, they're called a pochade box. They're like a little box that opens all up, and they screw onto, you know, your camera tripods. They just screw onto there, and it's just like a little box, and then it opens up, and it has, so it's essentially an easel. They're pretty cool. Or you could just have like your sketchbook. With a lot of the urban sketchers, they just have their sketchbook, and then it just sits on their lap with like a tea towel or a hand cloth underneath, like on their lap, and then their little sketchbook is sitting there, and they can do their painting, and they can use that towel to wipe their brush and all that sort of stuff. So it can be as simple as you want, but these are all different things to think about if you wanted to do, say, if you're oils or acrylics. So then you're going to start needing an easel. For pastel, I suppose you could work on your lap, but I think I would also probably want some sort of an easel, maybe. I don't know, I'm going to figure it out. The problem with this competition I'm doing, it's either oil, acrylic, or watercolor. No pastels allowed, which is a little bit annoying. And then, of course, you're going to need your paints, your brushes, your palette. So just pack the minimum. Again, paints are good because you can just pack a few, and you just mix on your palette, of course. With pastels, you're going to need a few more. But the beauty with pastels is that you don't have a wet painting to try and take home. You can just take a folder and some glassine, and you throw it in the car. So think about your what's the best palette for you, your canvas or your paper. So make sure you bring along whatever you're going to work on. For this sort of thing, I don't think I would use pastel matte, because again, I feel like I'm not expecting a finished painting. Again, different for this competition, but just to go out, say, generally doing your journaling or sketching or coming up with ideas for a larger painting, you're probably not going to do practicing on your pastel matte, because it can probably become a bit expensive. But what I did a workshop with Elena Charalova, and she was getting us to paint with pastel, or just use pastels, on these matte boards. So scrap matte board, okay, so if you're going to be doing pastel, just go to your local framer, and they will have they're like $1 each, something like that, $1.50, and they will have a pile of scrap matte boards. So it's all the centers of the mats that they they're getting too small to then use as a mat for another customer. So I know my framer does it, and I'm sure a lot of others do, and they just have a pile of these, and they're literally $1 each. So and the beauty with them is that they're acid free, because it's matte board. So if you do something amazing, then you could still frame it and keep it. But they're nice and rigid. I think these would be ideal to go out and use plein air sketching. Okay, so that's that's what I've decided. And I like the black as well, especially like you can see on here on the landscape. I don't know what it is, and it was easy to do because of the black coming through. I don't know, it just worked better than if it was on a white. So I would go with any dark colors if I was doing that, I think. I doubt you use Oh yeah, stable table. Yeah, Odette does a lot of painting out and about. So yeah, stable table, that's a great idea, because that will just then give you a little table on your lap, which yeah, I need to get one of them. I used to have one years ago. I remember as kids we all had a stable table when we were eating dinner in the lounge room. And yeah, but for doing sketching and that, if you want to sit down with a nice little bit of a table on your lap, then yeah, a stable table would be ideal. Again, like a palette knife, if that's how you want to paint. Also mixing your paint. Don't forget your painting medium if you are using paints. Um, you've also got it. See, this is the thing with what I like with pastel. You just grab your paper, like your mat board, and your tray of pastels, and you're pretty much done. Whereas if you're painting, you've got to think of how you're going to clean your brushes, all that sort of stuff. What mediums, you've got to have water. You've got to have stuff for cleaning up. Like if you're doing oils, you need your terps. Like there's a lot of things that go into your kit if you're doing painting. So that's where you really got to sit and figure out what's the minimum. Okay, you don't want a huge amount of supplies. I think if it takes you forever to set up and pack up, you're not going to do it. Okay, you want it just set. If the inspiration grabs you, you've got a little kit there, you can just grab it and go and do a bit of the plein air. Then, of course, your sketchbook and pencils, they're great for figuring out like composition. So you might be sitting and looking at a whole landscape and it's going to be overwhelming. So sometimes you need to figure out just a small section of it. And you see some people, they walk around with their, I should have grabbed it, kind of like a mat board, I suppose, but like two corners, and they can move it around and figure out their composition. Or I have this little thing that it's called a view catcher, and you can't see it, but they have some little marks of the sizes. So if I bring this down to this line here, that there is an 8 by 12. So, and of course that's square. So if you're planning a painting and you know the size of the painting you want to do, you can make sure you've got the viewfinder set to that, and then you can either do landscape or portrait, and you can just sort of move this around and look through it to figure out what area of that landscape that you want to work on. And it can also help to figure out a composition. And then what I did see one fella do, which I thought was a good idea, he, let me find a pencil. So he would get this, and then just on his little sketchbook, he would draw his little shape there, and that's where he'd then figure out his composition, and he knew it was the right size for his painting that he was going to do. And also, like, you could do landscape as well. So they're just like little thumbnail compositions, and you can create the shape with that and then go out and figure it out in your whole big landscape. Because I do agree, sometimes it's too much when you're looking. So I think that's something else you got to learn as well when you're out there plein air painting, is to figure out what you're going to paint, not be overwhelmed by the entire scene. Especially, I know the urban sketches in Maryborough, there's so many beautiful old buildings in there, and you'd get sidetracked with too many things. So you really need to focus in on just something small. And I think one of these little viewfinders is a good idea, or you can make your own, like I said. But yeah, so things like that are handy to have. Then of course your water and your snacks and your sunscreen. And then most importantly, a comfortable chair or a stool. Especially, like I said, if you're going to plan on being there for a good couple of hours, then you need to be comfortable. Maybe an umbrella or a hat as well. And then also don't forget to take little rubbish bags. Make sure you don't leave any rubbish lying around. Okay, and so it's not just, this is what I'm finding after like looking at all of this, it's not just a matter of going, yep, I'll grab a sketchbook and off I go. There's a lot of pre-planning to make it successful, because I know I would just jump in the car, drive around, waste 2 hours trying to find something, and then I'd get there and I'd set up, and within about 15 minutes I'd realize I'd forgotten something, or I wasn't comfortable, or so I know I need to plan to make sure it's going to be successful. And that's what I'm thinking. I need to do more planning for this art one here in Biggenden, because I had it in my head that they usually have a up the center of the main street, they have roses, and I went out there yesterday. I just had to go to the shop, and they've cut all the roses back. Obviously it's something you do with roses every year, and they've gone and cut them all back, so there's no roses to paint. So that sort of blew my idea, because that was what I was thinking I was going to paint. So now I need to go out and figure out what else is out there. It's a small town. There's not much to it, so I don't, because we've only got 5 hours, I don't want to spend half of that time trying to figure out what I'm going to paint. So I definitely need to do some prior planning. All right. Also, I suppose when you're looking at it for a sketching session, again, don't think I'm going to paint a masterpiece. Okay, I'm just more capturing the shapes and the colors and the atmosphere. And I think to start with, I do it with most of my paintings actually anyway, but start with getting the dark values and the shadows in first. Then it doesn't matter as much if the light changes throughout your painting session, because you've already got all those shadows in. And I always find once you've marked in those shadows, it kind of maps in sort of where other things are. And shadows are the easiest thing to see. So just squint, of course, and you'll see those darks. And just also keep in mind, when you're doing landscape, further away the atmosphere is there, so things look that misty, it's got that cloudy sort of look over it, don't they, the distant mountains. And your darks and lights are always more intense as they're closer to you from that. So keep that in mind as well, of course. And then always start loose and large, and tighten up as you're sort of finishing. But yeah, I think the main thing is really to focus on those light and dark values. And I've seen someone use as well, again, there's all these little things that can help. Has anyone seen, it's like a red filter, it's about this big, I saw this guy have. It's like a bit of red perspex, like translucent perspex. And if you hold that up, it kind of kills a lot of the colour, so you can see value better. So that's another little trick that plein air painters can use as well, because sometimes it's hard to see the different values when it's all in colour, whereas by looking through this red screen thing, it kind of kills those colours a little bit and makes it easier again. So if you find when you're squinting you struggle a bit, then maybe get yourself a bit of, even some red cellophane actually would probably work. But yeah, it's a pretty handy little thing. So I'm all for having these gadgets that can help us. I suppose the other thing, you've got to work fairly quickly as well to capture. I know when you're working plein air, especially the weather can change so quick. So, try and work fairly quickly to capture what you're doing. All right, I had some other tips here for practice and preparation. So regular practice sessions, practice painting outdoors in different locations to become familiar with changing light and conditions. Small studies and sketches, so create quick sketches and colour studies to refine your composition and colour choices. Make sure you have a lightweight and manageable setup. So make sure it's easy to carry and easy to set up. And simplify your palette. So focus on capturing the essence of the scene with a limited palette and simplified shapes. Make sure you're prepared for windy, sunny, rainy days. Consider a group painting session. So painting with others can be less intimidating and it provides support and inspiration. So that's a huge one. I think if you are worried, I've got some tips here for if you're worried about people coming and seeing what you're doing, then take a friend who will paint with you, and then it's way less daunting when there's two of you painting and someone comes up because you can both talk to them then. And then, like I said, Anne suggested starting with a very simple subject. Like she said to me, just start with the gate post and a bit of corner of the gate that goes with it. And then, of course, don't forget to jot down notes. Like I was saying, Lynn Diefenbach has, she turns them into little poems, but each page on her journal has some notes just about what she was thinking at the time, about whether she was struggling with it or whether there was like heaps of mozzies around or something about the weather or, just something to refresh your memory about it as well. Okay, so I did make sure I found some tips for handling like curious onlookers, because I know a lot of artists are introverted, okay, and it's way out of your comfort zone even just going and painting plein air, let alone having people coming and seeing what you're doing. Now, I don't know anyone that someone would come up and say you're useless, like your art's terrible or anything like that. So even if you're a beginner and you know yourself, it's like they got that real ugly stage happening. Don't know anyone that would come up and go out of their way to come and talk to you and put you down. Okay, just keep in mind that most people who come up to talk to you are fascinated by what you're doing because they can't draw a stick figure, as they always say. Okay, so you got to do things scared to grow. Okay, always remember that. So, but you could always start out, like I said, practicing in your backyard or find a place that no one else goes to. Another one was you could journal in your car. So I know some of us, you might have kids to pick up from school or something, and you might spend a bit of time in the car. So that's a good place while you're waiting. It's also, you could go out to do plein air, but choose to stay in your car to do it. That way you don't have anyone coming and bothering you. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that either. Again, join your local urban sketches if you can find that group. There's always, any of these art groups, they'll always support you and teach you. They always welcome new members and beginners. Okay, so you'll have people of all different skill levels and they'll take you under their wing and they'll give you some hints and tips of how to improve. Okay, so don't be scared to join one of those urban sketching groups. What pencils would you recommend to take with you for journaling? All different things, actually. It's up to you. I was looking at Anne's books, and I thought she would initially do her sketch with a lead pencil. So I would just take a pencil But she doesn't. She was saying what she does is she'll get her, if there's a perspective happening, then she'll get her perspective lines in with her pencil, but then she just starts drawing with these, like the little ink, what are they? They're just a little drawing pen, fine tip, a little drawing pen. Because I said, well, what if you make a mistake? But that's all part of it. And they're just a little line, they're just little lines that she's making. So I suppose if there could be mistakes there, but you're not really noticing. And then she does the watercolor on top. Now, it all depends like what you want to use. I know Lynn doesn't do pen and ink. She does, I think she gets her sketch down with a pencil probably, but then she uses all different things. She'll take watercolor pencils maybe and do a bit of that, and then add water rather than watercolor, just use the pencils. Or she uses the white, I've seen the white acrylic pen to add some bright whites to it. I think she also mentioned she has things like these are called distress crayons. They're just some crayons, kids crayons. She just uses all different things. So I suppose you've got to figure out what type of painting you want to do, and then you'll figure out what materials you're comfortable with. So if you're just doing journaling and sketching, I think you can either do the pen and ink, which is very common, or just go with stuff that you already have. I have like watercolor pencils, which I think I'd probably use those. Or you could, if you've got acrylic paints, maybe. I think for journaling though, because you're in a book, aren't you? It's a bit different. So there's two different things. You're either going out plein air painting on like a canvas or on, like I said, like things like this, or you're doing your journaling in your book. So for your book, you're not going to use oil paints because you're never going to be able to close it. Same with, you're not, like you saw with my charcoal, it was a fail. Pastel would be no good either. So that's why I think most urban sketches use pen and ink. But think about things that, you can close your journal and it'll be dry and you don't have to worry about it being ruined. Okay, so here you go. Yeah, Evelyn said water soluble. Tinted graphite pencils work well. Yeah, they would too. So if anyone does do journaling, definitely pop in the chat what you use. Have a let me just, I'm just going to, if I can find it. I've lost it now, haven't I? I'm just trying to find, I was watching a video. Here it is. Oh, I'm going to share a link. Hopefully this works. This was a video I was just watching of Lynn Diefenbach. I've watched it a few times before. And she's going through showing her journal. And I think you'll see how beautiful it is. Hopefully that works. With your little sketchbooks, I think to start with, you can, again, depending on what you want to do. Of course, if you're going to do watercolor in it, like pen and ink, it needs to be a bit thicker. Okay, and it doesn't, a little bit of texture to it and a bit thicker paper. That's something to look for. But honestly, I don't know that when you're first starting out, I don't know that you need to have the most expensive sketchbooks. There's some really expensive ones out there. But I think to start with, I would go with not the cheapest ones, but something that's not too bad in price, but I got these ones off Temu, which they're really lovely. And yeah, I think also if you can get ones that open out flat would be good too. But these, they're a bit smooth, but they're fairly thick. But I feel like if I was using, say, watercolor or adding water to this, it would go through the page a bit and it just probably wouldn't work very well. So something cheap like this would be better for just sketching. Whereas this one, this is a proper watercolor paper in it and it's really thick. And I know I could put watercolor on that and it won't go through to the next page. Okay, so again, depending what equipment you're going to use, probably will depend on what sketchbook you want. I know Strathmore, that's what Anne was using. They're probably more expensive, but Strathmore do a decent one. And I know Lynn shares in that video, the book she's showing has a toned paper. So it's already like brown, the background. So that's what I was saying before. Maybe I could do a wash on here so it's not as white and not as scary. Maybe have a toned paper might help. It's a bit like how I was saying with this, it seemed to be easier working on that dark background. So, all right, so things if you're introverted and scared, you could maybe keep a response in your head that if people come up, you can just say, oh, thanks, I'm just practicing, or I'm just trying to capture the light today, or, you know, it's just a study for fun. Like you could just have something that you just sort of, you know, you can reply, but also gives them, you know, it's more like, okay, I'm busy type of thing. I don't really want to talk without being too rude. You could put headphones in, listen to music. Sometimes people also think, I found if I was doing sketching, a charcoal painting in a market, and I found a lot of people don't want to disturb you. They just want to watch. And when you're working, they figure you're busy, so they don't want to interrupt, but they do want to watch. So the minute you stop is when they'll ask questions. So if you look busy, then they usually won't. Choose a low traffic spot, of course. So if you're nervous about people watching, don't set up in the middle of a busy park. Find a quiet corner, maybe face your easel away from foot traffic, or like I said, even paint from inside your car or your backyard. Most people, like I said, are just fascinated and they're admiring your courage. So yeah, usually, like I said, people will compliment you. They won't usually say that you suck. So don't be scared of that. And then, like I said, if you're really nervous, bring a friend with you. If there's two of you there, it's less all about you. And that way, yeah, you've got someone else to deflect with. Jill, you've used fine tip pens, but I don't think they're beautiful. It's a good way to spend waiting time and good memories, yeah. Exactly, Odette. People are very interested in what you're doing and are very encouraging. Actually, Odette's had quite a few experiences, haven't you, when you were in Tassie with working on a painting, and great conversation starters. People want to come and see what you're doing. And also it's a great way if you do commissions and pet portraits. It's a great way. People will ask, you know, oh, do you have a card? Like I was thinking of getting a portrait done. Do you do that sort of stuff? Okay, so yeah, if you've got the courage to just get out there and do it, it's a great way to grow your business, especially. But yeah, it's good conversation starters, and if you like a chat. But these are more for if you don't. So You could also time your outings either early morning or later in the day when there's fewer people around. Plus, of course, early morning, late afternoon, the lighting's usually better as well. And yeah, you can you can just say no, you don't want to chat. Like, it's okay to say, oh, thanks for stopping by, but I'm really trying to focus right now. You know, you don't have to, because I know some people, I was talking to Anne about this, she gets a lot of people because she'll just sit. She did a beautiful one while she was in the airport. So, you know, really crowded, and she's sitting there painting away. So you're going to get people come up and want to talk to you. But if, yeah, you don't want to spend your whole time just chatting, you want to actually focus. So, yeah, you can just sort of let people know that, you know, thanks for the compliment, but I'm really busy. I need to get this done before the light changes or before my flight is called. So yeah, so let me also know, hold on, I did have another question here. Oh no, it wasn't. I wanted to just say, so maybe try this week to just try and find somewhere outside, or it doesn't even have to be outside, I suppose. Well, yeah, I suppose plein air is outside. I was going to say you could just do some sketching inside your house, do a still life or something, but this is all about plein air, so this is about getting outside. So try and, yeah, just even go in your backyard if you've never done it before, and if it's something you want to do. Definitely try and set time aside. I'm gonna go and find a fence post and a gate and have a go at that. And then I also think I need to go and scout out some locations for this art competition. So just remember some mistakes that beginners quite often make is overpacking and making it too hard to carry, because sometimes you're not going to be able to park the car right next to where you want to paint. Picking a scene that's too complicated, so that's where we need to break that down. And then don't forget your comfort items like your chair and some food and water. And also don't stress out when people are watching. Okay, so just remember, it's more about the experience, isn't it, than the result. So I will share photos on my Facebook page once I've had a go at this gate that I'm going to do. And don't forget to let me know if you are interested, if you do live up my way, so up around that Fraser Coast, North Burnett, Wide Bay, any of that area, or if you want to come up for the weekend, let me know. And I'll figure out something and we can organise hanging out at this Biggenden little art competition. It'll be lots of fun. Okay, guys, I'll let you go. I've been chatting for an hour and I haven't had a coughing fit, which is great. So it means I must be getting better. Oh, Elizabeth said it's too cold to go outside. You started the day at 0. My God. Yeah, there's a cold breeze today, but as you can see, I'm in a t-shirt, so it's not too bad. So, all right, guys, I hope you do. If you are interested in plein air painting, this has given you a few ideas. And yeah, I'd love to see if you do go out, or even if you normally do sketching and do a sketchbook, definitely share with me. I'd love to see it. And also, don't forget to check out that link that I put in the comments to go and have a look at Lynn Diefenbach's sketchbook. You'll be blown away with how good it is. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you all next week. For those in my membership, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow morning. Bye.